Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dina Ledwith. I'll tell you a little bit about myself momentarily. It's so great to see such a broad range of locations represented and backgrounds just by looking in the chat so far. Um, our presentation today is Research Skills for First-Year College Students, the Library's Role. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. I am not a librarian. I am, but I rely on them very, very heavily, so I do play a role. I am a former high school teacher. I taught high school for 11 years and then took a hiatus when my children were young. And I then had the second part of my career teaching in community college, Nassau Community College. I teach mostly developmental students, and I teach mostly developmental reading and writing. And developmental is, another term that's the term that's used interchangeably sometimes with remedial. Developmental is the preferable term because of the connotations of remediation, but for students who do not place into credit English. Additionally, I teach a course that is for students at many of the colleges that you teach at or you work at have as well, which is a college experience course, which I'll tell you more about momentarily. So my experience teaching the college experience course as well as a teacher of English, I certainly see the needs and the transition that takes place for research skills. And so what I'm going to talk to you about first is a little bit of background about the college, and then the needs that I have that I observe, and also that I rely on my wonderful colleagues to help fill as the students transition from high school to community college. Slide, please.
Oh. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's
I went
right.
ahead. Okay, there we go.
So we thought we'd tell you a little bit about the college in case you might, if you're not from this area, you won't be familiar with it, because it definitely has an impact on the population that we serve. So the Nassau Community College is a 2-year college. Could be much longer, could be less, depending on what students are pursuing, but it is dedicated to high quality, low cost education and career preparation to meet the needs and interests of the community it serves. So that's a quote directly from the website. And that is absolutely true. Like community colleges, the philosophy is educational opportunity for all. And that has, that's a wonderful mission, but it can be a challenging one. So as a result, as you might expect, some of you I know are from community colleges, some are high school, your setting is high school, you might be in a 4-year institution, but we have a very diverse population as a result because we have an open admission policy. Anyone is welcome to come to pursue an education. As a result, that diversity is very broad in terms of age, experience, educational background, socioeconomics, cultures. Diverse is, I can't emphasize enough the range that we have, and that makes it a wonderful place, but it presents challenges to meet everybody's needs. We have traditional and non-traditional students. So traditional students, the recent high school graduate who is pursuing higher education, but then we have non-traditional students, a lot of return to school adults. I always tell people that the age range that I have, especially because I teach the developmental population, students who need some support. My age range since I've been teaching at Nassau, which is 9 years, has been 18 to 56. And that's literal, that is the range. And the non-traditional students have actually changed further with the pandemic, because while remote learning has created tremendous challenges that I know many of the presentations are going to be addressing, they also allowed opportunity for certain students. Like I have some students that they are concerned about the return to face-to-face because they could only attend school, and they began attending school because of the opportunity to go to school remotely. Single moms, for example, or students with very demanding work schedules, family obligations, etc. In some ways, remote learning was a benefit to them. So we have there, because of the open admission policy, as I mentioned, developmental programs to ensure student success. So there are certain criteria for placement in math, let's say, or English classes. And if they don't meet the criteria, they take a placement test. And then they could be placed in a non-credit class or a class that has extra support. So for example, we have an English 100 class, which is the same credit as English 101, but it's a smaller class size and more interaction with the instructor, and it meets one extra time per week for support. And this is relevant to what we're talking about today because those classes require research. And every English 101 English comp class does a research paper of some kind. And if you're in the developmental section, you probably have more support from the instructor. If you're in 101, depending on who the instructor is, the assumption may be that the students already have mastered whatever that might be. Other developmental programs include that NCC 101 class that I'm going to tell you more about. So our school offers associate degrees. We also have certificate programs and continuing ed programs as well. So there's a wide range of opportunities for students depending on what their needs are. And that is our goal, to meet the very diverse needs. Next slide, please. So 21st century information literacy in today's students. So I think we probably all could talk about this all day. The observation that I make most is the gap that exists on many different levels. One of those areas, first and foremost, I think, is that most professional people who are working in education, they really do feel that students have such mastery of technology because this generation technology has been part of their lives since, basically out of the maternity ward. But they may be very adept at certain skills with technology, like mastering their phone or the kinds of things that, make social media lots of fun. But they really don't necessarily know how to navigate technology, I have found, even the strongest students, they definitely need help in that transition. They obviously need to be able to identify and evaluate information across all disciplines and in life. And they certainly do need assistance in making that, in mastering that. Then within our classes, there is, because of the diverse population that we serve, there's a wide range of research skills and experience among students. So for example, in that English 100 class I mentioned before, when I assigned the research paper last semester, I would say about 50% had ever done research before using MLA format, like a real research paper, maybe 50%. And within that 50%, the nature of that research or their experience in doing it also varied greatly. So even students who are very capable and very bright, they just, within that population, they have very different experiences. So there's a big gap among the students with what they've been exposed to or what they've accomplished in the past. Okay, next slide, please. So the college experience course that I mentioned is a course that is designed to ease the transition to college with an interactive class. So many colleges have courses or seminars like this. In some schools, it is required. At Nassau, it is not required. It is required if you are placed into 2 or more developmental classes. So if you placed into developmental reading and writing or writing and math, you would have to take this course. I will say that there are many non-developmental students who, it's a 1 credit course. They do earn a credit for it. So when I've taught it, you will have students who want to earn a credit because of, completing a full-time schedule or because someone recommended that they take it. And usually the non-developmental students who don't take it first semester say, oh, I wish I had taken this my first semester, because it's a retention strategy that schools have this, and it's been proven through research that it's very effective and helpful. The types of things that are addressed are all the transitions, all the different transitions to college. So your learning style, study skills, time management, then, practical things like degree requirements, how to approach environments, how to evaluate your degree, how to do what if searches to see if your degree were different. The resources of the college. Our college is very, very rich in resources, all kinds of support, from the amazing library we have to tutoring services that are all free for the students. And without especially because we're a commuting school, you know, without someone to guide students, very often they're unaware of what is available to them. And then last, but certainly not least, research methods and digital literacy. This is part of the course, and it's a requirement for students to be exposed to and to learn about the different research methods and the different resources of the library. Next slide, please. So this, of course, is the quintessential problem that most professors have. Students know how to get information from the internet. They just don't know that, you know, how to evaluate it, and they don't really understand what information they're getting or what the source is. So with levity, I included this, but this is something really that it happens all the time. I'm sure that, you know, most of you have witnessed this as well. And this is, of course, what we're trying to avoid. So I mentioned that the NCC 101 course does have a research project at the end. It's a presentation. It's focused on students' prospective career choice. It could be something they're interested in or maybe dedicated to. But in the developmental reading classes, we have a reading 001 and reading 002. There are research projects in those incorporated and required in those courses as well. At different levels. The reading 001 would be, maybe I've taught that course before, it might be where a student identifies a problem and researches both the problem and the solution in society based on readings that we've done, but they have to research the sources and then do a presentation. Reading 002 is paired with a credit course. It's called the gateway pairing. That's the way we have it set up. So the research project might be aligned with the coordinating course. Like I've taught that course in conjunction with the business class, so it was a business related research project. But with those developmental classes, students will get support, and we would turn to our experts for either pushing into the classroom or other methods for, you know, helping students specifically with those projects. English comp, as I mentioned, every English comp class, whether it's a straight 101 or a developmental with some support, there's a research paper involved. So we want to avoid, you know, of course, what you see here happening. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm focusing specifically on the NCC 101, the library information literacy assignment. This is a precursor to the career research project I mentioned a moment ago. It is also a foundation for college readiness. That's why they have students do it, because it requires that they would be made familiar with many different aspects of research. And it also levels the playing field, as I mentioned before, among the student population. There's different levels of experience and knowledge. So these are the kinds of things that I would ask them to answer questions about or discuss, or, you know, in some way demonstrate. Finding background information on a topic, Google searches versus subscription databases, assessing the database, or accessing the databases rather, assessing the Google search is what I meant to say, to understand what LibGuides are, the chat now function, just basic things for using the resource of our library, the differences between newspapers, magazines, and journals, and then of course evaluating sources so we could avoid the cartoon that we saw in the previous slide. So when I am doing these different projects, I do turn to my library colleagues, and they fill those needs beautifully. And I will now pass it on to Leslie Wong Loock, and she will begin to tell you about the way that those needs are met.
So good morning, everybody. As Dina said, my name is Leslie, and I am the head of research and instruction at NCC, which is one unit in our library. And as part of that position, what I do is I teach a lot of information literacy sessions. I also teach a 4-credit Library 100 class from time to time. And I do my best to ensure that the information literacy needs of the faculty, the teaching faculty, are met. So the way we do that is that we came up with various options during the pandemic. This is like a huge topic to discuss in a very short amount of time. So the way that I think would be a good way to do it is I'm going to start with what we've been doing for the last year and a half. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we did before and how we're going to carry it forward. So basically, we are considered faculty. So we are lumped together with the classroom faculty, and the librarians at NCC have been home since the COVID shutdown in March of 2020. So we haven't been back. Our building is open, but there are no faculty librarians there. It's open for just computer usage and Wi-Fi usage. As Dina said prior in her talk, she mentioned that a lot of our students come from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we left the building open so that they could come in and use the internet, the printer, the computers, in case they didn't have good Wi-Fi, or they didn't have, the printing needs that they needed, or the computing needs that they needed. So that building's been open, and our circulating collections also open, but that's about it from our library. So for the last year and 4 months, we've pretty much just been operating online. And this is how we did it. We have synchronous and asynchronous options, right? So first off, obviously, as we are doing right now, we have been on Zoom. We decided at the beginning of this, because it was a very quick flip, as you guys all know, back in the spring of 2020, that we were going to change it, because it's really difficult to keep Zoom classes for an hour and 15 minutes if we're not in the building, right? A lot of times when we did information literacy sessions, we were in the building and we were explaining a lot about library services. So now in our Zoom classes, this is the first time we've ever done shortened sessions. And we have done sessions from about 20 minutes to an hour and 15, to going from 1 or 2 databases, explaining them to students, to doing a full-on information literacy session. We have brought to the table to meet the needs of the students, right, and the faculty. It's completely changed the way that we do these sessions, and I'll explain that more shortly. Another thing we also do is one-on-one Zoom sessions. And I have been allowing students to make appointments with me, and I know the other faculty librarians have been also. And I find that these best mimic the reference desk. Like everybody else, every other college campus, we are very worried about retention, right? So I think during this time, it felt very good for students to know a face, see a face, and talk to an actual person, and not just a chat. We did obviously do chat reference. However, we really kept it, we really kept our Zoom sessions open to everybody. We wanted to make sure that students were getting individual help in a variety of different ways. And another thing we did was that we made short videos for specific tasks for asynchronous learning. And this has been really good. So as Dina said, there's an information literacy assignment, right? And also a career assignment in NCC 101 and in the remedial reading classes. And so what we did, Dina and I worked together. She gave me her assignment, and I made a video very specifically addressing the needs of her students. And this worked well for multiple reasons during the pandemic. Firstly, the students could do it when they were available, right? And it didn't have to be during class time. So you're not taking away valuable class time to push in with instructors. Thirdly, it allowed the students to pause when they needed to pause, right? And go to different aspects of the video as they needed, or fast forward if in fact they didn't need to go over that aspect again, if it's something that they learned in high school, or that they already did in a research paper, or somehow otherwise covered. So in that respect, short asynchronous learning videos worked very well for them. And I've included the links here, and they'll be sent to you if, with the slides, and available to you whenever you want to view them. We're not going to view them now. They range from about 10 to 15 minutes because they would have normally covered an hour and 15-minute class for the assignment. So, instead of sucking down all our time doing that, we're just going to move a little bit forward with the other things that we need to discuss today. So these 3 things worked very well during COVID. Our classes kept on rolling, the faculty librarians kept on teaching, and they were resources that didn't really take a break, right? Prior to COVID, our live information literacy sources, they were very much focused on library services and resources. And no matter what the class, the librarians spent a very large chunk of time discussing library services and library resources. A lot of times they use database and print library sources for when they were talking about research only. And they often describe the internet as the enemy or unreliable. Well, the COVID shutdown, we were headed away from that as it was, but the COVID shutdown really changed that for everybody, right? So we need to operate in an environment where we really level the playing field for all of our students. And not many of them are not familiar with databases and print library resources. Some of them had never been to their high school library or very rarely went to their high school library and never went to the public library. This was probably maybe, a real percentage of our students, I would say up to 10% had just not been to the library before or not past childhood, right? So that is it's a big hurdle, right? But as we were going forward in this online environment, I really started to think about what our students needed, right? And what our students, needed to come away with after they had come out of one of our classes. And the type of student we have isn't the type that's quite ready for really hardcore college research papers, right? They actually, I think that a lot of the faculty members had unrealistic expectations of the knowledge and basic information, the background information that the students had of what was available to them and what they knew about any subject that they were going to do a research paper on. I have gotten, private messages from students and met with students saying, I have no idea how I'm going to write 3 pages on this, right? I feel like as faculty members, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that a 3-page paper to some students is a really big deal. They don't feel like they have 3 pages to say on anything, right? So that was like a huge sort of thing that I felt like we were dealing with. And so I really did want to level the playing field for everybody. And so instead of discussing our library services and library structure, I actually started to focus a lot more on digital literacy in conjunction with information literacy. And because a lot of our students don't go on to 4-year colleges, I found that this sort of utilitarian training might fit them better and fit their needs better. And even if they do, right? They can in later years learn to use the library as scholars do, right? So let's take a look at this. So we started at a very, very basic level. And I actually do the opposite. A lot of the librarians, especially when I came here, they would just pick 2 databases. They would show the students what was in the library, show them 2 databases, and then give them the opportunity to go ahead and use them, which is great in an environment where we're mostly focused on getting them to understand how to write a research paper. But right now, I think it goes beyond that, right? The expectation is that they already know how to navigate the internet in a way that is meaningful, right? They actually don't know that. They're not ready for what we traditionally think of as college level research. And so what we've been doing is downloading, we've been building in digital literacy into our classes. And how have we been doing that? We've been talking up to our students a lot about free resources on the internet and the difference, right? And the hierarchy of information that you can achieve. We've taught them how to use Google Advanced to make their searches worthwhile, to search certain websites. We have been showing them free resources on how to use some free resources, especially in the career assignment, where the best resources on finding stuff like how much somebody is paid or what kind of profession where there's a need for the most nurses. it's actually found on government websites, right? You know, the Department of Labor has most of those, most of that information. So we've been trying to move them to do a combination of both database research and free web research. And I always tell the students this, that it's super important to just go to Google to do your background research, to understand a topic so that you can fill 3 pages, but don't cite to it, right? Use it to get the keywords to search for databases. There is absolutely no point in starting to search for databases and then finding a peer-reviewed article right away. It doesn't make sense for them. They don't understand the language that's being used, and it's discouraging. So I always describe it to them as if they're walking into a party and everybody knows each other and they're all talking around you and you just feel awkward and that you don't know what's going on, right? So in order to speed yourself up and catch yourself up, you know, you should start at Google. You know, I think that a lot of librarians do discourage that, but you know, you have to teach them correctly to start from Google, right? To look at great sources, to you know, to go ahead and like, you know, research with different tabs open, right? Look at what the New York Times says. What does the Wall Street Journal say? You know, maybe you want to look at something else, right? To get, maybe it's the Atlantic, to take a look at these different sort of web-based resources so that they can get what they need, right? Before they walk into the party, they come in prepared, right? So I think in that way, it makes students feel less intimidated. And if you're teaching them the right tools for digital literacy, you know, I think it makes the transitioning to college a little bit easier for them and a little less shocking, especially for our population. In fact, last year, we got subscriptions for our campus to the New York Times. So everybody has one now, anybody who wants one. And I often walk the students through it right there in the class and tell them to log on and sign up for an account and download the apps to their phones. And I tell them this because the next thing I do is walk them through a Google advanced search where they're only searching the New York Times website for the information they need. And in this manner, you know, they kind of get what I think of as a decently researched newspaper article in something that they might be better able to read. And it's sort of a safe space where they're not on the internet finding like these crazy sort of blogs that don't make any sense or things that they can't possibly understand, you know, easily. So that's some big things that we use. I do think we'll be taking forward all of our Zoom and video needs, as well as moving into a digital literacy plus information literacy and BI environment going forward, just because the students seem to react well to it. They get a lot out of those sessions. And so, you know, that is definitely a positive. And at the end of every class, and I think that this is like my small effort, I'm trying to help with retention. I leave my email for personalized follow-up. It hasn't been this crazy, you know, like giving students my email hasn't turned out to be a crazy thing. The students that really need help get it. I'd say I'd probably get between 3 and 5 follow-up emails from every class I do, and it's not you know, a horrible number where I can't keep up with it. And some of them want Zoom sessions, but that's been okay. You know, that I would do that anyway in the actual environment if we were sitting, you know, in person at the reference desk. So, you know, none of that has been a crazy sort of, you know, drain on my time. And it has been, you know, working. We're getting through to students despite being away. We will be returning in September to in-person, you know, going back in person. So I hope that we can take these lessons that we've learned forward and move them into like a sort of a hybrid online Zoom environment, because I don't think Zoom is going away. It's good, I think, to keep up these skills. And with that, I'm going to turn to our electronic resources librarian, who's going to talk to you about the other ways that we meet information literacy needs from our students. Shikha.
Hi, everyone. So as Leslie said, I'm the electronic resources / emerging technologies
And so one of the things I hear often from first year faculty and upper level faculty and the students themselves is, yes, we love the website and everything. And yeah, we like the video Zoom and we're kind of Zoom fatigued, but they're getting so much technology all the time that they want something even better. Like it has to be this big show for sometimes to kind of attract them. So one of my jobs is to look for new technology and how we can incorporate that new technology with our information literacy first year research needs. So one of the ways we try to bridge this is through these tutorials using different software. So one of the big ones that we use is obviously LibApps. I'm sure I know a lot of libraries are on this, and we've been recently looking more into their LibWizard feature, and so that's one of the things we've had for a long time actually, but now we're actually building upon it, and also LibApps is constantly adding new features, so it's actually working our way. So actually, can you go back one slide? Okay, so the big one we have right now, which has been on for a long time, is our information literacy tutorial. And I'm going to show you both of these after I speak for a few minutes, only because I'm not going to go into, we don't have that much time, but I just want to get you to have an overview of it. So the information literacy tutorial, it's mainly for the first years, but we've noticed that almost all our faculty use it because we made it really general and it has a lot of parts, so they can pick and choose what they want their students to focus on. We like it because it gives us a lot of customization options. So we can always add new content, add new videos, add images, to kind of keep them engaged. So it's easier to update. The second thing, and this information tutorial was done years ago, so we have to keep updating it, of course. And the second one is kind of our new baby. Leslie, me, and another faculty librarian, we launched this in the fall, this past fall. And this was a big request from many departments because they like the information literacy tutorial, but because it's on LibWizard, they weren't able to connect it to Blackboard, which is our biggest pet peeves with LibApps. It's like, you got to learn how to connect with Blackboard or give us some better API tools, but we're still working on that. So they want our faculty, our first year faculty ones, they all wanted us to do something with Blackboard because students don't want to go hunting and pecking, and they wanted to also hold them accountable. So the Blackboard quizzes is what they wanted us to use. So we ended up doing this tutorial. And like I said, this is easier for faculty integration. It gives the students accountability. The faculty can pick and choose the components they want and stick it in their course and have the students complete it. And they'll know it's been done because they'll get a quiz grade, which they'll use for attendance purposes or an actual pass fail, or even like 5% or 10% of their actual grade. So I'm just going to share my screen really quick so I can just show you. Leslie, it's telling me I can't share screen while the other participant is sharing. Oh, you're muted. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so this is our digital literacy tutorial in Blackboard. So as you can see, we have a great distance education department. They set up this for us because we're not in Blackboard. Even though we teach and Leslie's teaching 4 credit classes, most of our stuff is standalone. So we kind of had to get acclimated to Blackboard. And another thing distance education did, which is great, is that they made this an open course. So any faculty who wants to pull something from this can go right ahead and pull what they want. And these are the topics we did. And these are completely different topics than the information literacy tutorial, which is more, that library first year research, research skills. This one was more, and faculty really wanted this, is focus on computer basics, in which we ask questions, we show them videos and ask them questions about operating systems. So students know how to use an operating system. They know they're on Windows, they know they're on Mac, but they don't know the components of it. Internet safety was a huge one because a lot of them just click on stuff, especially the older students. They believe every single pop-up that comes up. So we had to kind of teach them some internet safety aspects. Evaluating information, we go a little bit beyond the usual information literacy. We kind of go into like social media and certain other components. So I'll just quickly show you an example. So digital citizenship, if they click on this and then they hit continue, it'll start up the quiz, and they can save it and return later, which is nice. And so we start off with a question, we give them some background, and then they have a question that they have to answer. And we give points to each, but the faculty can change the point range. They can customize this how they want. Another great thing is that we can stick in videos, because students react better to videos than reading a lot of content, which was another faculty request. Or like, hey, they're not going to read paragraphs and paragraphs. Give us quick blurbs, little micro videos. So this is what we did with that. And then the other one, which I told you has been around for a long time, is our information literacy tutorial, which is right here housed on our homepage. So if you click on that, you will be taken to it. And like I said, this one doesn't sync up with Blackboard. So faculty didn't really know if their students were doing it or not, even though they're assigned to this. And then we added, faculty wanted them to print out the final page. So that's the proof, but it gets a little hectic, especially now during COVID with the printer need. So the need to completely digitize was really important. And as you can see from the table of contents for this, this is like the usual, you know, what libraries focus on. And it's great because they need that level playing field. They need to be aware of this stuff, but they also need to be aware of digital citizenship and internet basics and what are the parts of a computer, because some of them only use a smartphone. When they come into the library, they're like, oh, this is a PC. It's like, yeah, there's more to life than your smartphone, guys, you know, especially for the first year papers, they're just in shock because they get on their smartphone, open up Google Drive and just type in there. And then they're like, oh, now I gotta, you know, use the computer, and they're kind of like, what are the components? So it's amazing the stuff we see. People like, you're making this up, and we're like, no, we're not. We're really not. You can go back to the slideshow. I will stop share. Okay. Okay, and next slide. And so these are our new initiatives that we're going through, that I'm actually working on this summer, and then what we're also going to be working in the fall together. So we did the information literacy tutorial, we used LibWizard, we did the Blackboard, and then the feedback we got was, well, it's nice, the synchronous videos, live videos, you walk us through the steps, thanks. You know, that's a really great feature. When I did the other tutorials with Blackboard and our general information lit one, they're like, okay, great, you know, you tell us what to click, but the students want to actually click it. They want to go through the steps. They don't want to watch you do the steps. So that's a feedback we got a lot from the first years, the upper levels. So we said, okay, we were thinking about ideas. And then this past winter, we were at another conference, Leslie and I, and this librarian from Queensborough Community College had done this fantastic interactive tutorial using LibWizard for a psychology course. And it was a side-by-side screens, and the left-hand side would tell you the instructions. You can even record it. And then the right-hand side was like 3/4 of the screen where, you know, where the student would actually interact with the library website. They, you know, it opened up to the library website. On the left-hand side, we gave the instructions, or verbally, you know, recording said, click on databases A to Z. And then they clicked it, and then it goes to the A to Z page, you know, click on subject, click on this database. So we were actually now getting the student to engage rather than just watching. So this is what we are up, well, what I am up to this summer. They take quite a bit of time. So for the first years, we're developing catalog search tutorials. So right before COVID, we had moved over to Primo and Alma. And so, and it has a lot of great stuff, and we want students to use it since they can get their articles, and some students rather do that than do standalone database searches. So we're working on just a general catalog search tutorial, and then we're going to do a psychology scholarly articles because our psychology department really loves the library, and we get a lot of input from them and feedback, and when we put them into an initiative, a lot of people follow. So, and they're really appreciative. So we want to do something for them because they usually give us some really good projects that we can use for PR. And so this is one that I'm working on, and it's going to provide a completion certificate at the end. So even though it's not going with Blackboard, which is kind of a pain, they're still going to get the certificate, and they're going to get that interaction, which the students want, because we know this library page backwards and forwards. We control it. We designed it. We see it 100 times a day. So it's not the same when we do it versus when a student does it for the first time. So that interaction and following the steps is really necessary, and that we're gauging is really important, and that's a direction we want to go to. The next thing, which kind of blows up the whole Blackboard thing, is that SUNY has transitioned to Brightspace. Some of the colleges are already on it. Blackboard was dropped, I think, last fall, and then everyone is just wrapping up, and we're going to start Brightspace like end of August or September. We haven't gotten a launch date yet. So everything that we did on Blackboard is going to be useless now. And so as soon as we heard the news, we got information from our faculty saying, hey, Blackboard's going, what are you going to do in Brightspace? I don't even know what it looks like. So I know this is going to be a big project for Leslie and I and the other faculty librarian, because we know faculty want stuff on this because the integration and accountability and the quiz feature has been really great. And also the literacy tutorials. What's also been great, and we want to go more into Brightspace with it, is that first we did the information literacy, which is the general one. But in the past year, right before COVID and definitely during COVID, we're having a lot of departments come and say, hey, we want an information literacy tutorial for our specific area only. So we've had English department come to us, which we're working on right now. We've got the psychology department that's wants specific stuff. We have stuff, you know, that we're developing for NCC 101, the first year course, because there's certain things that come up there so many times that it doesn't make sense for them to go to a larger information lit one or to these other ones where they can pick and choose. So that's also been a big one. And they're also going to look for the interaction, especially for the NCC 101s, because we want them to learn how to navigate the pages. Once they navigate, they feel a little more comfortable, and then getting the information is just the first part, and then they can easily, hopefully, transition to, you know, analyzing it. But just working through the steps, we don't realize how much anxiety it causes them when they go to on our webpage and they're like, I don't understand what you mean by databases A to Z button. I don't understand what you mean by this database is linked. And we take it for granted, but the interaction, like most of our questions, I've noticed since we came on to Zoom and chat live, which is on our homepage, is that they'll go get the information from the database, but 9 out of 10 times they just want me to help them get to that link. So the interaction and the navigation is also a huge part of us trying to bridge that gap and not take it for granted that they know how to navigate a webpage, because 9 out of 10 times they can't even find the information literacy tutorial link, and I showed you it was right in the middle of the page. So there's a lot of you know, things that we have to figure out in order to really bridge that gap sometimes. And then the end, our hope is to provide a combination of the traditional video, synchronous, asynchronous, interactive, and then this Brightspace integrated tutorials. And with that, I guess we're going to open up to questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a wonderful first presentation of the symposium. We have several questions in the Q&A as well as in the chat. So The first one is for Leslie. Do teaching faculty invite you by being the librarian role in Blackboard in their classes? I find it an easier way for students to reach you and monitor their progress.
You mean to go into the Blackboard classroom? I'm so sorry. I'm only listening to your question. I don't see the question in front of me. Is that what they mean?
Nico, can you clarify in the Q&A section? And I'll go on to the next one. Claire asked, the Blackboard quizzes, do faculty just course copy it into their course?
Shikha, do you want to take that or do you want me to?
No, I'll take it. Yes, they can course copy it and they can copy the whole thing or just whatever component they want.
Thank you.
That we have a distance ed department and a person who specifically deals with that. His name is Neil, and he teaches all the faculty members how to do this because it is a little difficult. They have this weird download thing where you have to open up a zip file, which is fine for some people, but a lot of faculty sometimes have a problem with that, and he walks them through it by hand. Everyone needs a Neil.
Thank you. Another question, have you done any assessment on the effectiveness of your tutorials? And if so, what have you done to do the assessments?
Leslie and I are actually on the assessment committee, and a lot of the assessment was put on hold because of COVID. So the only assessment, unfortunately, we've been able to do is statistics, the webpage statistics and how many times it's been hit. I can tell you that our information literacy tutorial on the webpage is our #2 highest hit webpage after the homepage. So it is huge. Every faculty, every first year faculty is getting their students on this information literacy tutorial. The other ones, we meet again, our committee in September, and we have to figure out how we want to do it because we're going to have to give numbers to the assessment committee because our assessment committee also reports to the college. And so they're going to want the numbers, and that's probably going to be one of our late summer projects or early fall projects because we need to figure out exactly how effective it is.
If I could just add to that, because the individual tutorial videos, like the ones that Leslie linked in the slide deck, you know, I know it's a data-driven world, so this is unpopular, but just anecdotally, they get, you know, you can get feedback because those videos were amazing, and then I can see the students demonstrate through whatever assignments that they have to complete. But I know that's not the hard cold numbers that everybody in the world is looking for, but that is another way is to get the faculty feedback.
Okay, and a related question on the tutorials. Everyone's extremely interested in the tutorials. How much time did it take to create the first one? What tips do you have for reducing the time for creating them? And how many librarians worked on the tutorial? So it's a lot of questions in one, I guess.
So the information literacy tutorial was about 4 librarians. It's a big one, right? So we split it up within the reference department. We each did 2 sections, and it probably took us a week of hard labor, I guess, for lack of a better term, of doing it, of recording, of finding the right videos that we wanted to use, of making a script for ourselves. Like it wasn't an easy process, but once it was done, all we have left to do is tweaking. So for us, that was a big summer project for us about 2 years ago, and we knew that was coming as a large summer project. We don't try to do a lot during the school year because there's not enough of us and there's a lot of students. It gets very busy, but we try over the summer to have one big project, and that's what we did. Like one year we did a whole weed of our collection. This year we did the information literacy tutorial, stuff like that. This year Shikha, poor Shikha, is doing a huge thing on our own. So it does take a significant amount of time. So far as cutting down the amount of time, LibGuides in itself is great for that, right? Librarians are awesome at sharing with each other. It's open to everybody. You can see everybody else's. You can take generic things off the internet that don't pertain to your specific catalog or your, anytime a database, video is pre-recorded for EBSCO, it's the same thing, right? It never changes. You can use other schools' versions of that. And we haven't been shy about asking other people how to code. Like our library homepage is pure LibGuides because we were able to ask a lot of other people and look at a lot of other people's stuff to add to our own. I forgot the rest of the parts of that question.
Oh, I think you got it all. It was how many people, how to cut it down, how long did it take? So you got it all. I have a clarification here from that first question. To clarify, are you embedded in classes like a student and professor in the LMS as a librarian role on Blackboard?
You know what? So no, we aren't, because we don't have liaisons to departments, and there are 5 of us full-timers, and there's a fluctuating population between like 10 and 20,000 students. So that would be a lot, but that is actually quite a good idea. I've thought about asking certain departments like English or the remedial classes or NCC 101 if they would like to have an embedded librarian so that the students feel welcome just to ask this specific person, and that person has expertise, you know, about that. I have a background in law. I used to be a lawyer and work for the court library. So I do work a lot with the paralegal students at our school, and they are told to ask for me specifically, actually Shikha also now has a background in law. So now there's 2 of us here, but you know, they can go to her as well. But yeah, for departments where we have specific specialties, like we have other librarians that have masters in English or masters in psychology, we do sort of redirect the students to that department. But no, we're not embedded. That is a good idea, something I've been thinking about asking department chairs in the fall about.
Thank you. For the asynchronous videos tutorials, how do you make these available? Do you give the faculty links as requested, or is there a web page with all the links listed? How do you do that?
So for the faculty who are more private about their, you know, they don't, for whatever reason, they don't want it on a page, we actually just send them the link. Everybody is on YouTube, even though we have video recording services at our school, only because we're in a pandemic and YouTube is like, you know, everybody watches it, right? From cat videos to TED Talks, everybody is able to watch YouTube. And so I find it a leveler, right? So we put our videos on there. In the future, maybe we'll use one of the school services and get it off the free web. But right now, that's where we're at. We also have a web link, I believe, from our homepage to the videos. And we have like probably 10 or 15 now. I'm sure as more teachers request more, you know, that library will continue to grow.
Okay, this is a big question. What do you find is the most common information literacy related weakness among incoming college students?
Let's see. That's a big question.
Yeah, so maybe come to the rest of the symposium.
I think that the biggest weakness is that they think that they know everything and that they don't need information literacy. And you don't want to discourage them, right? So, you know, you don't want to talk down to them or make them feel like they don't know everything. So I think there's somewhat of a disconnect between what information and digital literacy is versus what they know about it. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle to overcome. And if you can kind of find a way to explain it to them, you know, in terms of college level research, as opposed to what they've been doing all their lives, that you know, make that distinction, right? You're in college now, you know, you have to do college level thinking, and this is the way you do it. You know, that is a kinder way, I think, to make the distinction between what they've been doing prior.
Let's see, I have a few questions that were in the chat. Let's see, who manages the workstations and printers if there are no faculty and staff in the library? Oh, this is a pandemic question. We're considering this, but deferred because of the number of workstations and issues that crop up with paper jams and software issues.
So we have TAs, technical assistants, that work with our ITS department, and they're in our building. They're stationed in our building. The TAs have come in, and they are actually in charge of all the computers in the building. We're not. you know, the library as a space, it belongs to the library, but the library equipment in the library belongs to ITS. Does that make sense? I know every school does it different, but that's how we don't manage the printers, we don't manage the copiers, and we don't manage the computers.
That sounds good. Because I know that's where most of the questions are. Do you control your web page? I ask this because it is approachable and that it's not overwhelming to the viewer. At my community college, we do not have control, and my complaints over the years revolve around the fact that our page is too layered, among other things. So,
Yes,
kudos for your web.
Yeah, we do control it. Me and Leslie did I came on actually in 2019, and I remember during my interview, they told me right off the bat, you're going to redesign the webpage. It's terrible. And luckily, it was never in the control of the college. They gave the library full control. So it was, even the previous old website was under the LibGuides. But what I did when I came in, since I'm emerging technologies, I had some background in CS, and so does Leslie. So that's why we were such a great team in CSS, HTML, Bootstrap, and she has a few other computer languages on her plate. But so we broke this down and created the web page from scratch. So even though we're on LibGuides, we did the upgrade to the CMS. And we designed and coded everything by hand. But once again, it wasn't just both of us. Whatever we like from other libraries, they were very happy to share their code, and we made that code our own with our own specialization and how we wanted to make it look.
And also, I take a huge compliment to that, because I did all the Photoshop work on the page, that it's easy and clean to navigate. Thank you.
Oh,
I love to hear that.
Excellent. Always good to end on a happy note. We have one very brief question, which we'll have time for before we end this session. Will you have a library tutorial in Brightspace for students and faculty once Nassau Community College transitions totally?
Yes, that's one of the fall projects, because we have to, I don't even know what it looks like. I've just seen slides so far. So I think it's going to take a month or two, maybe more than a month or two, for us to just learn the basics of it. And no distance education is going to make us do a lot of training for it. Because for the whole college, not just us. And then we'll probably at the end of fall, early spring, start something, because we don't want to give a bad tutorial on it. We really want to get into the nitty-gritty and see all the features we can utilize, especially with the interactive parts. We're hoping Brightspace is a little bit more savvier than Blackboard, because Blackboard is so archaic and ugly. I hate to say it if there's any fans out there, but we're not a fan of it. And I'm hoping Brightspace will give us a better option for the tutorials.
Okay, great. Well, we've had a few more questions come up in Q&A, but we have to end this session so we can get to the next session. So thank you for such a lively session. The next presentation will be Making the Connections for Student Success. And you can go to the program. I know Rebecca's put some links in the chat on how to get there, because we're getting a lot of traffic. So our site's been a little bit slow. So there's multiple ways to get there. So see you all at 11. And thank you, Leslie and Shikha and Dina. Thank you so much for kicking this off.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.